Central on ABC.
Tonight on Nightline, not guilty. Casey Anthony is found not guilty of murder in the death of her young daughter, Kaylee.
The jury find the defendant not guilty.
After 3 years, the verdict she wanted, while outside court, public anger brews.
Justice for Kaylee!
We are live tonight from Orlando, Florida. Bombshell verdict. It transfixed the nation. The story of the little girl, the young mother, and one family's life on trial.
Have you ever sexually molested your daughter?
No, sir.
It all ended today in this stunning decision. And unanswered questions. How did the evidence stack up? How did the jury decide? Casey Anthony, not guilty, inside the bombshell verdict. A special one-hour edition of Nightline starts right now.
From the global resources of ABC News, with Cynthia McFadden and Bill Weir in New York City and Terry Moran in Orlando, Florida, this is Nightline, July 5th, 2011.
Good evening, I'm Terry Moran, live here tonight in Orlando, Florida. Well, not guilty. That is what the jury decided today in Casey Anthony's murder trial. Stunning verdict. And while the young Florida woman was convicted on minor charges in the death of her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee, really, this was just a total victory for her. It means she's escaped a potential death sentence and might be free in days. The reverberations of the decision are only beginning to be felt. This evening, a member of the prosecution team announced he would retire at the end of the week after a 30-year career. And an attorney for the parents, George and Cindy Anthony, meanwhile, he tells ABC News tonight that the family has received death threats in the wake of this verdict, as if they haven't suffered enough. Here's ABC's Ashley Banfield.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Have you reached a verdict?
It was a swift and shocking end to a courtroom drama that has transfixed the nation.
As to the charge of first-degree murder, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
25-year-old Casey Anthony found not guilty on every major count relating to the death of her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee. The 12 jurors, all of whom declined to speak following the verdict, deliberated for just 10 hours and 40 minutes, most of that over the 4th of July holiday. Anthony did not get off scot-free. The jury did find her guilty on 4 counts of lying to police, but they're just misdemeanors, punishable by a year in jail each. By all accounts, there is no question this verdict is a victory for Casey Anthony's defense team.
What my driving force has been for the last 3 years has been always to make sure that there has been justice for Kaylee and Casey.
From the beginning, both sides tried to keep the focus on the little girl whose doe-eyed image haunted this trial. She's seen here in these videos licensed by ABC News.
It has always been about seeking justice for Kaylee and speaking on her behalf.
The other familiar faces in this courtroom, Casey's parents, Cindy and George Anthony, stoic as the verdict was read.
Not guilty.
They slipped out of court before the judge finished, hiding out upstairs with their lawyer until the crowd had dispersed.
Justice for Kaylee!
What can only be described as an angry circus outside the courthouse was matched by the intense emotions raging inside. But those emotions have been coming to a head for weeks now as a family drama unraveled on the stand. Cindy Anthony weeping as she listened to her 911 call, the one in which she reported her own daughter to the police.
There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
And there was Casey's bombshell accusation that both her father, George, and her brother, Lee, had molested her as a child, a charge George Anthony denies on behalf of himself and his son.
It all began when Casey was 8 years old and her father came into her room and began to touch her inappropriately.
It was by this claim she would explain her bizarre behavior after her daughter died, partying till all hours, entering a hot body contest, even getting a tattoo that read, Bella Vita, the beautiful life. Her attorney would claim that George Anthony helped Casey hide the little girl's body after she accidentally drowned. With the death penalty on the table, the tension only mounted as the evidence wrapped up over the weekend. Even the closing arguments delivered over the holiday weekend were unusually contentious, with lawyers from both sides yelling objection.
The bones showed evidence of
Overruled at this point.
And the judge directing that the incest allegation be left out of closing arguments based on a lack of evidence.
There's no facts in evidence or reasonable inference that either Mr. George Anthony or Mr. Lee Anthony molested or attempted to molest Miss Anthony.
That left Casey's defense team arguing that Kaylee's death was just a terrible accident that was mishandled by the family.
If you look at all of the evidence here, it only adds up to one thing, and that is she died by an accident. This was an accident that snowballed out of control.
But the prosecution tried to paint a picture of a young woman who wanted freedom from the responsibility of raising her daughter.
When you use your common sense, you can listen and hear that there's nothing that's wrong with Casey Anthony that can't be explained using two words: pathological liar.
Yet the physical evidence remained a problem for the prosecution. That's because Kaylee was missing for so long. It was 6 months before her body was found, and it had simply decomposed too much.
I never ever criticize a jury. Theirs is the task of deciding what to believe.
And so the mystery remains. Was Kaylee Anthony murdered? And if not, how did she die?
The jurors probably focused on cause of death, which is that the prosecution couldn't demonstrate, based on physical evidence, that the cause of death was a homicide, meaning that she definitely died at someone else's hands as opposed to the possibility of an accident. And my guess is that these jurors felt that there was reasonable doubt.
Casey Anthony will be back in court on Thursday for sentencing. She could get up to another year in jail, in addition to the time she's already served. But then she'll likely be free, since an acquittal on murder can never be appealed. Today, George and Cindy Anthony, along with their son Lee, released a statement through their lawyer asking for privacy. It reads in part, "While the family may never know what has happened to Kaylee Marie Anthony, they now have closure for this chapter of their life. They will now begin the long process of rebuilding their lives."
She can never have the life back that she once had. Her child is dead, and her parents have been injured. There is no winner in this. There's only tragedy, and now she has been so reviled that people just aren't going to be able to change that view of her. She'll be back out, but she's going to live in a prison the rest of her life.
Thanks to Ashley Banfield for the story of today's stunning verdict. Well, just ahead, HLN host Nancy Grace has been one of the most outspoken analysts on the Casey Anthony trial. We're going to get her reaction to this verdict.
After that not guilty verdict, somewhere out there, the devil is dancing tonight.
ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Progressive.
I'm looking to control your budget. Yes. Our Name Your Price tool shows you a range of options. You pick a price that works for you.
Perfect. Only one thing could make this better.
80s montage!
Progressive 80s montage. He drops in boxes, but it's okay. We keep dancing. Hey, it's that guy. Progressive Name Your Price tool, yeah.
Helping you save. Now that's Progressive. Call or click today.
Naturals from Purina Catch-Out. Delicious real ingredients with no artificial flavors or preservatives. Naturals from Purina Catch-Out. Share a better life.
Imagine your teeth are giant glass sculptures covered in yellow graffiti. Most whitening toothpaste only removes stains from the surface of your teeth. But there's also a layer beneath called dentin. Dentin discolors over time. Rembrandt Deeply White toothpaste uses the same enamel-safe whitening ingredient dentists use to noticeably whiten teeth from the inside and out. Rembrandt Deeply White. Whiten inside and out.
The Countdown Chevy event is here. Turn it up in a Malibu. 33 mpg, over 500 highway miles a tank. One of our 9 models over 30 mpg highway. Fuel up, rock on. Very well qualified lessees can get a low mileage lease on a Chevy Malibu LS for around $179 a month. Fuel economy based on EPA estimates. Count on Chevy for more out of every mile.
Naturals from Purina Catch-Out. Delicious real ingredients with no artificial flavors or preservatives. Naturals from Purina Catch-Out. Share a better life.
We had never used a contractor before and didn't know where to start.
At Angie's List, you'll find reviews on everything from home repair to healthcare, written by people just like you.
No company can pay to be on Angie's List, so you can trust what you're reading.
Angie's List is like having thousands of close neighbors where I can go ask for personal recommendations.
That's the idea. Before you have any work done, check Angie's List.
From roofers to plumbers to dentists and more, Angie's List. Reviews you can trust.
I love you, Angie. Sorry, honey.
J.C. Dugard, her first interview, this Sunday night on ABC.
Here we go again. The fun never ends. Now all you need is you. Very fun. The fun and all that.
Dear Chris, there's so much for everyone here at Knott's. I can't wait for the new Windseeker. The live shows are great, and the kids are pumped about visiting Camp Snoopy. Love, Anne.
Very fun. The fun and all that.
Today's verdict came as a shock to so many millions of people around the country. They felt passionately about this case. Many believe justice has not been done. And one of the leading voices on this case from the beginning joins us now. Nancy Grace of HLN, a former colleague of mine at Court TV. Nancy, you have covered this case from the beginning. I just want to ask you point blank, when you heard this verdict, what was your reaction?
Well, I've got to tell you, Terry, I felt sick, and I still feel sick, because I know, I don't believe it, I know it is a miscarriage of justice. We already have one of the prosecutors, Ashton, retiring. We have the prosecution team so just sick at heart they couldn't even speak after the verdict. I love our system, Terry. I believe in our system. So when our system fails, as a victims' rights advocate and a crime victim myself, I take it very personally.
Have you got any sense of what went down in that jury room?
Well, I do know this. I watched the jurors. They very rarely took notes, and I had to take reams of notes to keep up with the scientific evidence as it came in. They took notes for neither side at all. In fact, one juror was often observed twirling her pen around in front of her, around and around and around and around. You know, that's a problem, okay? It seemed to me that they were overwhelmed by the evidence, that they did not understand the scientific evidence. I think it was very, very confusing evidence. And I also think when you get a jury where you've got one person arrested for DUI, one person arrested for possession of drug paraphernalia, you've got people that have had bad experiences with police. And those people are not going to render a verdict for the state. It's just that simple.
You know, Nancy, I want to ask you one final question, and that is, you've spoken really for the feelings of so many people around the country, but you've also been criticized. People say, and let me just ask you, is it ethical for a lawyer like yourself to come on television and say this defendant is guilty, call her tot mom, demean her? Do you think that's the right thing for a lawyer to do?
Well, let me tell you, Terry, I don't find the moniker tot mom to be demeaning. That's your interpretation of it. Now, why you think that that's demeaning, a mother of a tot, I'm the mother of two tots, And I don't find that moniker to be demeaning, nor is it intended to demean anybody. I don't believe that anything that I have said has been an inaccurate rendition of the facts. In fact, I believe that what I have portrayed and what my guests and experts have portrayed have been very accurate, as was portrayed in the courtroom. So I don't see what's unethical, as you were saying, about that. Many of the facts that I have portrayed on my show on HLN, you have also portrayed by having me and others on as guests. Now, is that ethical, Terry? You know, when you're in the court of law, you're held to a different standard. We're not in a court of law, all right? We are not shrouded from the evidence. We hear more evidence than the jury heard. And it absolutely is ethical to discuss cases of the day. As a matter of fact, you of all people, Terry Moran, having been, you know, cut your teeth at Court TV, know that our founding fathers wanted courtrooms so big that the entire community could hear the trial. Now, is it wrong for us as citizens to look at our jury system, to look at cases, to discuss them in depth, to be passionate, to care? The day that it is unethical to care about the murder of a 2-year-old little girl who ends up duct taped and thrown into a swamp is the day that I, too, will retire and rue the justice system.
Nancy Grace, passionate as always. Thanks for being with us. And up next, the scene outside the courthouse here was one of shock. People angry, really, at this verdict. We'll tell you about that up next.
Justice for Kaylee! Justice for Kaylee! Justice for Kaylee! Appeal! 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 Appeal!
Depression is a serious medical condition. I feel like I have to wind myself up to deal with the sadness, the loss of interest, the lack of energy.
Ask your doctor about Prestique, a prescription medicine proven to treat depression. Prestique is thought to work by affecting the levels of 2 chemicals in the brain, serotonin and norepinephrine. Tell your doctor right away if your depression worsens or you have unusual changes in mood, behavior, or thoughts of suicide. Antidepressants can increase suicidal thoughts and behaviors in children, teens, and young adults. Prestique is not approved for children under 18. Do not take Prestique with MAOIs. Taking Prestique with NSAID pain relievers, aspirin, or blood thinners may increase bleeding risk. Tell your doctor about all your medications, including those for migraine, to avoid a potentially life-threatening condition. Prestique may cause or worsen high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or glaucoma. Tell your doctor if you have heart disease or before you reduce or stop taking Prestique. Side effects may include nausea, dizziness, and sweating.
For me, Prestique is a key in helping to treat my depression. Ask your doctor about Prestique.
When you smile, the world smiles back. Introducing Crest 3D White Enamel Renewal Toothpaste. It not only removes up to 90% of surface stains in just 2 weeks, it also strengthens and rebuilds your enamel.
So, where are you getting off?
3 stops back.
New Crest 3D White Enamel Renewal Toothpaste. Life opens up when you do. And try Crest 3D White Rinse.
Casey Anthony, inside the bombshell verdict. Tomorrow on ABC Good Morning America.
I woke up in the desert like I've been dropped out of the sky.
Where'd you get your bracelet?
I don't know. What the hell?
He knows where they are. You just have to remember.
You ready to get your people back?
We have one advantage. They underestimate you.
Rated PG-13, July 29th. Shaw 70% off, Boyu 70% off, and other name brand carpet 70% off during Empire's big summer blowout. We're cleaning up the warehouse and you save 70%. We're talking the good stuff with warranties up to 20 years and installed next day. Empire's big summer blowout only happens once a year. Call today and save 70%.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Today.
Star Tours, now open, with more than 50 different adventures in 3D, part of the Disneyland Sensational Summer.
It's really delicious, Mom.
It's not too well done.
Nope, but it is a job well done.
What are you reading, sweetie?
Her diary. When you're done, I'd love some feedback.
Sure.
Your mom and I read that thing cover to cover. Loved it.
Thanks.
Would you mind if I cut the lawn this weekend?
Only if you let me talk to your mother on the phone for hours on end.
Done.
Uverse brings peace to the family. AT&T Uverse lets you record 4 shows at once from any room and play them back on any TV. Get Uverse TV for only $29 a month for 6 months. In the network, everyone can get along.
I tell you, I work a long day. Every day. I hang my head out the window. Oh, man, we're delivering everything you can think of. Plywood, cement. I enjoy the breeze on my tongue. Well, and every weekend, seems like we're heading down to the lake or pulling a boat or something. I don't know why, I just do. It's not a problem. I don't mind, as long as we always stop at Chevron and get that Techron stuff. My ears flop around, too. Check it out.
Your car takes care of you. Care for it. Chevron with Techron. Care for your car.
It's hard work. I need a nap.
People felt strongly enough about the charges against Casey Anthony that many of them came here to Orlando today to fill the courtroom and stand outside the courthouse. Well, then the verdict came down, and the gathering outside the court turned into a protest, complete with angry chants. In this special hour-long edition of Nightline, we now turn to ABC's Yunji Denise with the public reaction to this verdict.
For weeks now, they've come from around the world to be here for Casey Anthony's moment of truth, lining up day and night for the hottest ticket in town.
I was just waiting to see if I was going to win the lottery as they're counting out, but don't know whether you're going to make it or not.
Fights even broke out over those 50 coveted seats. And when the verdict finally came down outside the Orlando courthouse, each was sure they knew what it would be.
Guilty, I guess.
Justice would be her getting the death penalty.
We're hoping for a guilty verdict.
I really hope they find her guilty, which she definitely is.
Together, they huddled around an iPhone, and then it came.
Not guilty!
They were stunned.
Oh, my God.
It's like we got punched in the stomach. It's like, wait a minute, that's not what was supposed to happen.
This is crazy. Justice, dude, we wanted justice for Kaylee, and we're not getting justice for Kaylee.
There were tears.
Kaylee has been forgotten just like that. What happened here? What happened?
I mean, I've got 8 children, and I can't even imagine taking, if one of them was missing for an hour, I'd be in a panic, let alone 31 days.
And outrage.
Justice for Kaylee! Justice for Kaylee!
It's not justice, God! You need to do something with that!
People pushed toward the courthouse door, hoping to get a glimpse of the Anthonys, but deputies rushed them out through another exit, keeping them away from this crowd.
No justice served today, none at all.
As the group grew restless in the hot sun, police eventually forced everyone out.
We need you to move off the steps, please. You may go to the protest areas if you'd like.
In that crowd, a lone voice of dissent.
If you take the emotion out of this case, all the emotion out of it, and go just by the facts and just by the evidence, there was no evidence to convict him.
You know, you are the only person that I have spoken to out here who feels this way.
I believe in the justice system.
8 miles away, people began descending near the place where little Kaylee's remains were found. There was an eerie silence in that swamp, nothing like those angry mobs downtown.
It's really peaceful. I feel like a lot of people have done a good job at keeping her memory alive in there.
Because I'm a mother of three kids, 3 daughters. And I don't know, it's inconceivable to see what this child went through and dying so young.
Kaylee would have been almost 6 years old today. So many offering prayers here, little girls not much older.
She didn't deserve any of this, and I felt very bad. And I could see in her eyes that she loved her mom a lot.
I wanted to say goodbye to her, and I hope that she would rest in peace, and I hope God could take care of her, too.
Back at the courthouse, the shock of the verdict was palpable, even hours later.
This proves it right here that this court system is screwed up.
Someone could kill their child and get away with murder. She's going to possibly get out Thursday.
and be amongst us?
Right. She's going to be harassed until the day she dies because she got found not guilty and everybody knows she did do it.
She needs to be on watch or something.
She needs to move out.
We're going to look for her.
She's not going to have a good life in Orlando. I don't think so at all.
Casey Anthony may have been found not guilty by a jury of her peers, but her city isn't ready to welcome her home. I'm Yunji Denise for Nightline in Orlando.
Thanks to Yunji Denise for that. Next up in this special hour-long edition of Nightline, Casey Anthony won her trial today, but has she lost what remained of her family?
Jury number one, were these your true record?
That it was important for people to serve no matter what.
In just 5 days, J.C. Dugard, kidnapped at age 11, held captive for 18 years. Now a young woman, ready to speak about surviving the unimaginable and what she now hopes we all will do tomorrow in our lives. In just 5 days, J.C. Dugard, her first interview. This summer's most compelling and life-changing television event. Sunday night at 9/8 Central, the Diane Sawyer Special on ABC.
TGI Fridays presents 3 courses for 2 people for $20. Share an appetizer like a fresh shrimp cocktail. Choose 2 entrees from our right portion, right price menu. Try the petite sirloin with your choice of 2 sides. Pepper-crusted pork chop with onion rings and creamy mashed potatoes. Spicy dragon fire chicken or our mouth-watering shrimp Key West. And choose a delectable dessert. Enjoy our 3 courses for 2 people for only $20. Anytime is a great time. Lunch, dinner, or late night.
Tempur-Pedic, the most recommended bed in America, is hosting a model closeout event at Mathis Brothers. Mathis Brothers is built on having the everyday lowest prices. And with Tempur-Pedic's model closeout, buy now and save up to $200 on closeout models. Plus, during their Upgrade and Save promotion, save $200 and get free local delivery, interest-free financing, and free removal of your old mattress. Millions of customers know Mathis Brothers is the low-price leader. Enjoy the best night of your life by saving big on Tempur-Pedic at Mathis Brothers.
Traveling to LAX can be a problem. Gas, parking, traffic? Not anymore. One click and shuttle to LAX.com takes you from home to LAX for only $20. Period. Same $20 fare no matter where.
Are you behind in your mortgage or in foreclosure? Loan modification going nowhere? I have a better solution with absolutely no cost to you, the homeowner. The solution is a no-cost short sale from Sherman Smith & Associates. Call me at 855-7-HELP-ME. That's 855-7-HELP-ME.
Beat Carmageddon. Download the app at abc7.com.
This special edition of Nightline continues from Orlando, Florida with Terry Moran.
I'm Terry Moran in Orlando, Florida, and welcome back to our special hour-long edition of Nightline. We're here with this stunning verdict today in the trial of Casey Anthony. This trial's just put incredible strains on her family. Defense lawyers accused both her father, George, and her brother, Lee, of sexually abusing her. With today's verdict, she is safe from the death penalty, but the life they face will not be easy. There they were again in the back of the courtroom today, as they'd been so many days. George and Cindy Anthony awaiting the moment of truth for their family.
You find the defendant not guilty?
Casey wept. Her parents quietly left. Afterwards, the lawyers spoke to the press mob, their statements touched with sorrow for one family forever shattered.
While we're happy for Casey, there are no winners in this case.
For us, the case has never been about the defendant in particular. It has always been about seeking justice for Kaylee and speaking on her behalf.
This evening, in the statement the Anthony family, George, Cindy, and their son Lee issued through their lawyer, they tried to look ahead. They will now begin the long process of rebuilding their lives, it said.
You learned in December of 2008 that the remains of your granddaughter were found. What effect did that have on you when you learned that Kaylee's remains had been found?
A deep hurt inside.
The whole world witnessed their pain in this trial. Last week it was excruciating as George Anthony took the stand again and could no longer bear it all.
Up to that moment, had you held out the hope that Kaylee would be found alive?
Absolutely. Every day from July 15th until the day we were told it was Kaylee.
His granddaughter, little Kaylee, lived in their home. He and his wife were her primary caregivers, as seen here in these home movies licensed by ABC News.
Need a break, Mr. Anthony?
No, sir, I need to get through this. I need to have something inside of me get through this.
Do you need a break, Mr. Anthony?
No, sir, I'm fine.
His daughter, the accused.
Casey is a very effective liar.
She spins tales.
The world has its opinion of her, bellowed on cable news, brooded about in countless TV arguments.
Troubled, narcissistic, self-involved, selfish young lady.
But he is her dad.
Did you ever tell the police that you thought your daughter murdered your granddaughter?
I didn't believe that at that time, sir. No.
If you were to see them outside the courtroom and not know who they were, you would think this is a loving family.
Steve Helling covered the trial for People magazine.
This is a family who seems to have it all. They don't have any problems, but once you go into the courtroom and you see what they're looking at and what they're hearing and what their daughter is accused of doing, then you realize that they're holding each other just to keep each other strong.
What they've gone through is so horrible. For months, George and Cindy searched for Kaylee. They never gave up hope. And when their daughter Casey was jailed and jailhouse cameras captured their conversations, they stood by her, too, for a while.
Such a great job, Mom. I want you to know that you have. Everybody has said that. Everybody tells me every day. I'm trying so hard, but it's getting harder every day.
And in passages from these tapes that prosecutors played for jurors, Casey Anthony is, by all appearances, a loving member of this family.
You've been a great dad, and you've been the best grandfather. Don't for a second think otherwise.
They seem to be a typical middle-class family living in Orlando.
Bianca Prieto covered this trial for the Orlando Sentinel.
George and Cindy were there every single day. They spoiled that child rotten. The drawers were packed with little girls' clothes. The walls were decorated with Winnie the Pooh. Her little crib, they had taken the sideboard off because they had converted it into a toddler bed. She had a little tea table that her teddy bear was sitting at. I mean, that child was absolutely adored and loved.
You could see in those jailhouse conversations signs of the family fraying.
Can someone let me... Come on!
And then, in opening statements, the bombshell, the accusation that this was a family riven by incest.
It all began when Casey was 8 years old and her father came into her room and began to touch her inappropriately.
Casey, in her defense, accused her father and her brother Lee of sexually molesting her. On the witness stand, George Anthony flatly denied it.
Have you ever sexually molested your daughter, Casey Anthony?
No, sir.
Were you present in your home when Kaylee Anthony died?
No.
Did you dispose of the body of your granddaughter?
No, I did not. I never knew of anything that happened to Kaylee until our life started to unfold on July 15, 2008, and when Kaylee was found on December 11th.
According to the defense, he's the villain here. He's the one who sexually abused her. He's the one who took the body and put it there. He's the one who's effectively letting his daughter sit on trial for murder even though he knows the truth.
For Cindy Anthony, it was all a nightmare she could not wake up from. You heard it and saw it when she took the witness stand and listened once again to the agonizing 911 calls she made as the lies Casey had told her and everyone else fell apart.
We're talking about a 3-year-old little girl. My daughter finally admitted that the baby's in the store. I need to find her.
She relived all the shock, the anger, the worry. It was too much.
My daughter's been looking for. I told you my daughter was missing for a month. I just found her today, but I can't find my granddaughter. And she just admitted to me that she's been trying to find her herself. This something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
There is one other member of this family, Lee Anthony, Casey's brother. In those jailhouse tapes, it seems there was so much love there, too.
Hey.
Hey, sis.
How are you?
I'm here.
But Casey accused him. He even submitted to a paternity test to see if he was the father of her child. Home movies, they hold our memories. For this family, though, they hold such awful darkness and tragedy. The world will move on now to the next big sensation, but the Anthonys, father, mother, daughter, son, and a granddaughter lost. What can the future hold for them?
I don't know how the Anthony family will ever recover from that, because what you hope is people don't think, well, because they found her not guilty, her father must be guilty, her brother must be guilty. I don't know how you say to someone, I'm sorry I accused you of sexually abusing me.
The jury has spoken.
Not guilty.
But there is so much left unsaid. And it's a remarkable night with all the angles to bring you from this trial and this stunning verdict. Next up in this special hour-long edition of Nightline, sentencing for Casey Anthony is on Thursday. Does today's verdict mean that she's about to be a free woman?
After being found not guilty, what's next for Casey Anthony? And what's next for her parents who walked out after the verdict? Tomorrow, new details. Casey Anthony, not guilty. Inside the bombshell verdict on World News with Diane Sawyer on ABC.
Whoa! Don't want you spilling that hot latte on my driver's seat.
This is my car. Who are you?
I'm the second owner.
The what?
I will own this car after you. Look, I'm not telling you how to drive our car.
Our car?
Or where to park her, maybe under a tree with less sap. If you're gonna have a latte in the car, keep a lid on it.
It's a cappuccino.
Still needs a lid.
The highest quality cars plus an exceptional certified pre-owned program. Good news for the second owner.
Take care of my car.
Tonight, a demo featuring our new intern, Billy. Did you sign the contract? Yes. Your new phone awaits. Silly Billy! The contract is how the trap is sprung with Metro PCS. No annual contracts.
Say ta-ta to telecom traps.
Get unlimited talk, text, and web for $40 a month, taxes and regulatory fees included, and no annual contract. Metro PCS.
Tomorrow on ABC, Casey Anthony, not guilty. Now a special primetime Nightline takes you inside the bombshell verdict. What happened inside the jury room? What haven't you seen or heard yet? Primetime Nightline, tomorrow at 10, 9 Central on ABC.
Casey Anthony has served 2.5 years in jail already, and it's possible, given the minor crimes that the jury did convict her on, that she could be released very soon. We want to talk about this case right now with ABC's Legal Eagles. Ashley Banfield has been covering this trial from the beginning, and Dan Abrams, our legal analyst. And Ashley, let me go right to you. You were in the courtroom there when the verdict, this bombshell verdict, came down. What was that like?
Well, you could have heard a pin drop, and I don't mean that in a hyperbolic way. I mean it truly. Everyone was silent, and I think people were a little confused at the beginning and then stunned. And I actually looked around to the lead detective on the case who was behind me, Yuri Melish, and I think he just looked dashed.
What happened here, Dan? What was your reaction?
I was very surprised. I think I talked to you about the fact that I had correctly predicted that O.J. Simpson would be acquitted, and I was completely wrong about this case. What do I think happened? I think that the jurors simply did not believe that the cause of death has been proven, and as a result, that there was reasonable doubt. Those two things are connected, meaning people talk about cause of death and they talk about reasonable doubt, but those two concepts are the two key concepts here. I think in the end, these jurors were not convinced that there was enough evidence that this was a murder at all. There was the possibility it was an accident. Remember, if these jurors are 60%, 70%, 80%, even 90% sure that she did it, they shouldn't convict legally. And it seems that they didn't.
There's such a leap that you have to take between all the naughty things that were almost proven beyond reasonable doubt that were going on before this child died and all the naughty things that went on after. But it's that gap. What happened during the time that child died? And that's a big leap for some, and it's a tiny leap for others. And it's all about what's reasonable in your heart. Some people are reasonable here, and others are over here. And sometimes they're somewhere right in the middle.
It's such a stunner, though, and we were talking earlier. For so many people, they look at this jury and they think they just went haywire. This is a crazy jury, because we think we know the case so well.
But there's also the difference between the truth and the legal truth, which is, well, I mean, that first of all, people sitting at home get to see much more evidence and arguments, et cetera, than the jurors do. But secondly, when you're talking about the truth, the people out there can say, this is what I think happened, and they have every right to think that way.
And you're only saying that because the fact's not in evidence, right?
Well, no, but also because of the legal standards.
But they see more evidence than we do.
They do, but the legal truth is one that's very confining. And this comes back to the standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. It doesn't mean that the jurors think she's innocent. It means that the jurors think there wasn't enough evidence here. And I think that's the key distinction. That's why, despite the fact that I was stunned with the verdict, as a lawyer, I'll step back and I'll say, yeah, okay, I can understand the verdict. And I think if you don't think about it through that prism, it's a hard verdict to understand.
I used to, when I covered trials many years ago, I used to ask lawyers, how many cases in your career did the jury get so wrong you think that you didn't understand them? And I always got the same answer, just a couple.
I don't think that's fair to ever say a jury gets it wrong. I think every jury is different. They all have their own collective personalities, and we can never dash what those jurors do. Those people in that courthouse gave up their lives for 2 months for our democracy. I appreciate everything they did. It's an unusual verdict, but I don't think we can ever say they're wrong.
I'll say, for example, the O.J. Simpson jury. I think they got it wrong. It was an easy call for me. I think they got it wrong.
Or did the prosecutors get it wrong?
Well, I think the jury got it wrong as well, meaning, but I expected them to get it wrong. But nevertheless, I still thought they got it wrong. This jury, I think, in my view, I thought that there was probably enough evidence to convict on certainly one of the major charges. So, in my personal opinion, do I think that they probably got it wrong? Yeah, but does it matter what I think? Absolutely not.
Well, let's take a look at something else in this case, and that is the enormous media, talk radio, talk TV attention. You had not just millions of people watching, you had hundreds of people commenting, and most of them were saying she's guilty.
And they all showed up here. Let me tell you, every day they were fighting to get in, she's fighting to get off, they're fighting to get in, to get tickets. Public tickets to a trial. I've never seen anything like that.
But how much is that affecting, how much did the publicity, how much did that very aggressive she's guilty mentality affect this trial?
I think the publicity actually helped her. I think that defense attorneys in high-profile trials like to say that the media, in this case, was an assassin in effect. But I think actually in high-profile cases, the jurors focus much more closely on the legal standard because they know the world is watching. And as a result, I think it tends to be an advantage, much to the disbelief of many criminal defense attorneys.
Or the lawyers are more meticulous about crossing every T and dotting every I because they know that they could come out not just a loser, but a mammoth loser in front of the eyes of the nation and the world. By the way, Japanese television was up in the media room with me as well.
Yeah, this has become a global sensation. And for the millions of people who think this verdict is wrong, that the jury got it wrong, they also might think the system failed.
But see, that's where I disagree. I mean, that's where I agree with Ashley, which is that even if I happen to have thought, based on the evidence that I saw, that I think that there was enough evidence, that doesn't mean the system failed. I actually think that the system works, meaning that these jurors collectively, and very quickly, came to the conclusion that they didn't believe there was proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's not a failure of the legal system.
Right.
Again, that's the difference between the truth and the legal truth.
And you may not like the outcome. You may not like the outcome of a particular trial, but nobody walked into anybody's house and put a black hood over their heads and made them disappear for 6 years without their family knowing where they are. This is a great system. This country is one of the best systems in the world. Again, you don't like the verdict, doesn't mean it wasn't a just process.
I'll put a final challenge then. Well, then where's the justice for Kaylee?
That's a tough one. I can't, I wrestle with that every day with the evidence. I wrestle with it.
And the reality is that in many instances, particularly when you have a claim of an accident, I mean, if you believe there's an accident, there's never going to be any justice, right? So to believe that there ought to be, quote, justice for Kaylee, you have to have believed that someone committed a crime here and that as a result, someone should be punished. In the end, the jurors didn't believe that. And so a justice for Kaylee, I think, is going to come in the minds and hearts of all the people who came to care and love her.
And if anybody who thinks Casey is guilty, she's not going to live the same life she ever did before. Something's gone. Maybe she's not in prison, but she lives her own personal prison.
What an amazing case. Ashley Banfield, Dan Abrams, thanks very much for being here. And we'll be right back.
In just 5 days, J.C. Dugard, kidnapped and held captive for 18 years. Now a young woman ready to speak about surviving the unimaginable. J.C. Dugard, this Sunday night at 9/8 Central, the Diane Sawyer special on ABC.
Wow, the really big chicken sandwich combo is back, and it's as big as ever. I'm gonna jump it. You can't jump that. It's 2 chicken patties topped with bacon and melting cheese, plus seasoned curly fries and a drink for only $3.99. What do you know? You're only a baby. Vroom!
I'm T-Rex, and I came out of extinction.
And that got 1 million hits?
Yep.
Why do we even make commercials anymore?
Because you like to be in them?
Sam begged and pleaded, so I sent him to camp. We'd earn lots of points with our new city thank you card. And I put them to good use. He told me about his bunkmates and how he signs up for every activity. He even hangs out with the camp director.
Just like that.
The new City Thank You Premier Card gives you more ways to earn points. What's your story? City can help you write it.
I'm Terry Moran in Orlando, Florida. We're here tonight for the dramatic verdict in the Casey Anthony trial. We're bringing you a special hour-long broadcast as the freight train rumbles by here. Well, finding neutral jurors for the Casey Anthony trial was hard, no question about it. But in the end, Casey Anthony was tried by her peers. And we turn now to ABC's Juju Chang with a look at who they are.
As to the charge of first-degree murder, verdict as to count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
We don't know their names or their faces. They were strangers just 8 weeks ago and have been sequestered ever since. Today, their anonymous judgment got the world's attention.
Not guilty. Not guilty.
They headed off without a word or any indication if or when they might talk. Tonight, the jury is letting its decision speak for itself.
The 12 jurors have declined to talk to you. Absolute no. Unequivocal no. Universal, unequivocal no.
A jury of 7 women, 5 men, mostly white, just 2 black jurors. The youngest, a 32-year-old nursing student. The oldest, a 65-year-old white woman. Many are parents with children about as young as Kaylee Anthony would be. A handyman, a teacher, a retiree are among them.
We appreciate the jury.
The defense prevailed today with jurors strategically handpicked 2 months ago, 100 miles away.
Both sides ready to proceed.
It was here in the Pinellas County Courthouse in Clearwater, Florida, where the jurors were selected.
Could you raise your hand in the jury room and vote for death?
You always look at them with great hope, and you say, her life, her case is in your hands.
Richard Gabriel was a jury consultant for the defense. He says the team felt the cards were stacked against them.
We knew from the very beginning that we probably would not get the jury that we needed, that we wouldn't be on a level playing field.
The reason?
Why didn't Mommy call police? Mind-blowing new details in the Casey Anthony murder case.
So much pretrial publicity, they feared it would make it impossible to find impartial jurors. So they were looking for something specific.
A good juror for the defense is somebody who is skeptical, somebody who is so strong, courageous, an individual that could resist the public pressure to convict her.
We do know they all said they'd be willing to impose the death penalty. One juror doesn't even have a computer or cable TV. Several jurors have law enforcement connections. One is a retired nurse's aide with a DUI arrest, the only one with a criminal record. One's a former logger from Indiana, and at least one says she's deeply religious.
All those who vote guilty, raise your hands.
In movies like One Angry Juror, deliberations always seem dramatic.
I'm also switching my vote to not guilty.
Oh, come on. Seriously?
But in the end, Gabriel says as carefully as they tried to select, when it came to deliberate, those individual characteristics may not have mattered.
Quite frankly, a jury works as a group. You're seating a jury, not just a juror, and you're looking at the whole group together.
3 other jurors right in the row, cross their legs all the same way, cross their arms the same way, and also lean back at the exact same time. And usually people that tend to mirror each other usually create likability. And when there's likability, there is voting the same way.
Body language expert Susan Constantine has been watching the jurors' every move.
There's one juror on the poll that I would be very concerned about. And I can't tell you what juror number it is, but he's leaning forward, always at the edge of his seat, making feverish notes. To me, that's what we call an opportunistic juror. So that one would be a concern to me, is that are we looking at getting a lot of information down because, you know, we're considering a book?
Tonight, speculation about what went on in that jury room is just that, speculation.
What jurors tend to do is take a composite picture. They take elements of the prosecutor's case, they take elements of the defense's case, and create their own story, essentially, of what happened here.
No one is sure exactly what the jury thought, except that it wasn't enough to convict Casey Anthony. For Nightline, I'm Juju Chang.
The jury has spoken. Thanks to Juju Chang for that. Well, the murder of Casey Anthony's become an international sensation. At its heart, a little girl, a young mother, a family shattered. But why this trial? Why did this case draw us in so deeply? Here's ABC's John Donvan.
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
There was the courtroom verdict this afternoon, and then there was the verdict on the street.
Not guilty! Not a one!
And here it was not guilty.
Justice for Kaylee! Justice for Kaylee!
Indeed, the crowds that, even weeks ago, when catching glimpses of the prisoner, would scream murderer at her and baby killer, they never needed a jury to tell them who was guilty. They knew. They thought they knew, like the pitchfork mob in every Frankenstein movie ever made. She brought that out in those who watched this trial, and there were many who did watch. Because as much as it's argued that media saturation fueled the obsession with this story, and it's true, it was everywhere, just look at this. It was really the story itself this time that drew us in, the state against Casey, who just wasn't getting a whole lot of presumed innocent. And yet, she didn't look like a monster. And the family we came to know mostly through its sworn testimony or in those voyeuristic jailhouse phone conversations, they looked like you and I and people we know.
I want to see all of you, but I wanted to see the one person that I've been so far disconnected from the longest.
Get in line, Nicole. And not unlike folks who stood in line for hours to get a seat in the courtroom.
I just feel a little emotionally attached to the case for little Kaylee.
It's a trial of the century, our century, so that's why we're here.
There are millions of families, a lot like the Anthonys, just all over the country. People who have their problems, people who have, you know, they have friction between them, but deep down they really are a loving family.
Did we watch looking for some reassurance that this family was different? Because the crime she was accused of, a mother killing her child, it's so universally horrifying, it assaults our sense of what it is to be human. In modern times, we've seen just this kind of fascination in the case of Susan Smith, who drowned her children so she could spend more time with the man she loved. It may be that as a culture, we come down harder on women who are accused of murder than we do men because they're held to a higher standard, particularly as mothers. And we are surrounded with the idealized images of what we're supposed to stand for, and it's simple. Mothers are supposed to stand for love. And so the notion that a mother would deliberately squeeze the life out of this little girl's eyes, it's incomprehensible. Then there were the conflicting stories of what we were seeing in these eyes. Was it defiance and deceit, or was it desperation and innocence? It became, through the weeks of witnesses, the ultimate play-along-at-home TV show.
We all want to solve a mystery.
Agatha Christie figured that out years ago. We all want to be a participant. We want to know why, and we want to solve it, and everyone is trying to solve it.
But only 12 got to decide the case.
Appeal! Appeal!
And the Pitchfork folks, well, they decided also that this story deserved a certain sort of ending, which they watched for weeks, but did not get on this Tuesday afternoon. I'm John Donvan for Nightline.
Our thanks to John Donvan. Well, that's our report for tonight. We want to thank you for watching ABC News. Tune in for GMA Good Morning America when Nancy Grace and Dan Abrams will be here together in Orlando. And tomorrow night on Primetime Nightline at 10, 9 Central, we'll bring you the latest details emerging. See you here tomorrow.
Up next on Jimmy Kimmel Live.
At this point, LeBron James could have shot Bin Laden, and people would be like, yeah, but you only took one shot.
Elle Fanning.
I have a teacher that goes with me on set.
Annoying.
John Henson.
We had a boy, Jackson, 3.5
Very nice.
months old. Thank you.
After Michael Jackson?
Tito.
Why do you have handcuffs in your car?
I don't know.
You don't know? All right.
Jimmy Kimmel Live coming up next.
I want to crush more cars. I want to sell more teacups.
I need help selling bread.
I want to sell more crabs.
You know where you want to take your business.
I want to design more buildings.
In here, small business solutions from AT&T can get you there. Starting with the AT&T All for Less package, just $70 per month, voice plus broadband. It's the AT&T network, helping you do what you do even better.
I'm sure you know by now that when you call 1-800-DENTIST, we can help you find a pre-screened dentist that's close to you and can do exactly what you need. It only makes sense, right? And unlike the Yellow Pages, we can also give you their office hours, information on their background, special training, and more. Well, now if you like, we can also directly connect you to the office or email you a map and directions. Come on, how much easier do I have to make it? Call us today.
Living Space's historic 4th of July bedroom package deals have been held over for one more week. While supplies last, get the Aran Queen bed, dresser, mirror, nightstand, plus a queen mattress and box spring, all for just $7.95. Or upgrade to the Bergamo bedroom package.